Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue my series on adapting the fighting fantasy rules to a Twine game using the Sword and Planet subgenre of science fiction to inspire the setting and plot. So I'd like to start by creating a character, and we're going to choose this character today because this character has low luck, and to get to the bit that we want to talk about, we need to test our luck and fail. So here we are at the beginning. This is all the same as it has been in previous videos. We have the opportunity or the choice to reveal ourselves to this first group of aliens. If we do so, we are taken to their settlement. I have the word village there, but I'm probably going to use a camp, I think, in the final product. And there's a sort of a fight that it seems like we're expected to do as a kind of initiation. One of our options is to jump in the pit. If we jump in the pit, we will test our luck. And we want to be unlucky, so I'm just going to... There we go. We are unlucky. And we advance towards the creature. Now in this case, we have skill 12 and it has skill 10, and we have stamina 23 and it has stamina 6. So we would probably take care of it pretty easily. But let's say that our skill was lower. Let's say we had skill of 8, for example. And let's say we said to ourselves, perhaps we were playing the game for the first time, so we didn't know what the creature's stats were or anything. And so we said, well, I probably will beat it, but I'll lose a lot of stamina in doing so, and that might not be such a good idea if there's other things to come that will cost stamina. So given that I've got the opportunity to escape, I might escape. All right, well, if we escape, we lose 2 stamina from wounds as we escape. That's not new. That's just the standard thing that happens in a combat. You lose, if you escape, you lose 2 stamina per living enemy, basically. But this is new. We roll a die and we add the round number, and we got a total of 5 because the round number was 1. And it says the hunter-gatherers seem disappointed by your cowardice, and one of them sort of makes it clear that you have to leave and move on. You can't stay with them. So we have a new mechanic, which is that we roll a die and we add a particular number, and then we have branching based on what the total is, with the higher, well, in this case, and in the 2 cases that I've done so far, the higher results will be the better results and the lower results will be the worse results. I have done, there's one case where we add the round number. There's another case where we add the respect attribute. And they work exactly the same. The only difference is what gets added. So why do that? I'll show you the code, but firstly, why do it at all? Because we already have a way of testing our luck. We already have a way of, we do this basically the same thing when we're rolling against our skill. We do basically the same thing rolling against stamina. We do basically the same thing rolling against respect. The only real difference is the number of dice that we use, and also there's a special rule that when you test your luck, you have to reduce your luck by 1. Why have another attribute, another mechanic for this, what seems to be basically the same thing? Well, the answer is that it makes it easier to have more than 2 outcomes. So in a lot of situations that might happen in a game book, there's only really a good result and a bad result for any given bit of chance, right? The guard will either let you through or they won't. The rope that you're trying to catch, you'll either catch it or you won't. The pit that you're jumping across, you'll either jump across or you'll fall into the pit. But there are some situations where you might imagine more than 2 outcomes. So with the example of the guard, perhaps the guard will let you through if you give him a bit of money. So that's a sort of intermediate result. And then perhaps there's an even worse result. Perhaps instead of just saying you can't come through, perhaps the guard immediately shouts for help and attacks you, which is a sort of even worse result. So I think perhaps especially when you're dealing with either people or sort of creatures that are effectively people, those are the sort of situations where you often have more than two. It's easy to think of more than two results. When you're dealing with sort of physical things, you either climb up this cliff or you fall down the cliff. In my experience, that tends to resolve to sort of success or failure. But social type of tests tend to perhaps often suggest more than two outcomes. And that's what this does. It makes it a lot easier to have multiple outcomes. So let's have a look at the code. So here we are in the game. We're mostly going to look at main, and we'll also look at the initialize page. So let's start with the initialize page, and I'll find the section of the $S array which has the branching, and it should be 1AQ or 1AR, I think. Well, let's have a look. As you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff in here. A lot of it's unwritten, unfortunately, but okay. So here we have an example of the branching. In this case, we have no text. We have the number. Now, there's actually two different numbers, 11 and 13, that we'll be looking at today. 12 is the number for combat, and 11 and 13 are roll the die and then add a particular thing. The difference is what particular thing you add, but otherwise they're the same. So we have no text, 13, and then we just have a series of paragraphs, basically. We have 1AS, 1AS, 1AT, 1AT, 1AU, 1AU, 1AV, 1AV, 1AW, 1AW, 1AW. So they correspond to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as totals. What happens if you get lower than 2 or higher than 12? Well, it gets compressed. Like if it's lower than 2, it gets raised to 2, and if it's 13 or more, it gets lowered to 12, and that will be the best possible result, or the 12 result is the best possible result, and the 2 result is the worst possible result. So that's what it looks like in the S array on the initialize page. Let's have a look at how it looks in main. So we go to this branching. Most of this page is an if structure. Starts up here and ends right down the bottom of the page. And of course the new stuff, because I'm just adding this as I go, the new stuff is towards the bottom of the page. So here we have else if $S, $A, 1. So the section of the $S array that corresponds to the current section, which is $A, and the slot 1, which is where the type of the section is stored. Slot 0 is the text, or the message no text, or the message unwritten. And slot 1 is what sort of section we're dealing with, mechanically speaking. If that equals 11 or 13, then we have this set of code down to this line here, I guess, or not including this line here. It's all everything in that range. So we have a little note that says roll 1D, which just means one die, one 6-sided die. Of course, it means simulate rolling a 6-sided die, and add respect, which is 11, or round number, which is 13. So that's the only difference between these two. Go to $S, $A total, counting 13 or more as 12 and 1 or less as 12. Sorry, 13 or more as 12 and 1 or less as 2. So how do we do that? Well, we set Z equal to random 1 to 6. Of course, that's very common because that's the way we simulate rolling a 6-sided die. If $S A1 is equal to 11, we set Y equal to Z, the die roll, plus H. your current respect value. And if it's not equal to 11, and if it's not equal to 11, it must be equal to 13, because only if it's equal to 11 or 13 will this code activate. Else, set y equals $z plus $RO. $RO is the round number. And then we have one of these things where we store all this code into a string, and then we print the string at the end. And the reason we do that is to avoid unwanted spaces. Basically, if we print things as we go, sometimes it'll put in a little space where we don't want a space. So we set x equal to the bold tag, rolled, and then we have img art slash whatever the die roll was, which is zd.png. That's the little picture of the die showing the 3 face or the 4 face or whatever it might be, plus, and then we add to that either respect or round number, and then we add to that equals y, the total, and then we turn off the bold, and then we have a couple of line breaks, and finally we print all that. Then, because we want to restrict it to a range, we set y equal to math.min bracket 12 comma $y end bracket. So math.min means find the smallest of the different items that are going to be within these brackets separated by commas. There'll be at least 2, but there can be any number. I could have 12 y 4 times, you know, I could have a lot of, goodness me, 4 times $x, for example. I could have any number of these things as long as they're all separated by commas, but in this case I only have 2. Math.min 12 y. So if y happens to be 14, well, it'll go, what's the smaller of 12 or 14? Well, that's 12, so I'll set y equal to 12. And then we do the corresponding thing to make sure that it's at least 2. We set $y equal to math.max, which works exactly the same, except it's pick the highest of the things in the bracket, with you know, inside the brackets. And in this case, the options are 2 and y. So if y is, I don't know that it ever, in the case of the round number, it can't be less than 2, but I think maybe your respect could go down to a negative number or something like that. So you might end up with 1 or 0, but if so, it will push it up to 2. And then we set a equal to $s a $y. In other words, the branching options, the names of paragraphs, start at slot 2 and go up to slot 12, and we set it equal to whichever slot in the relevant part of the S array corresponds to the total that we got. And then having changed that, we then include main, i.e. we start again, we go to the top of the page and we keep going. And that's how that works. It might turn out that I end up adding other options that are similar. So maybe at some point you'll roll a die and add your skill or something like that. And if so, all I have to do is update these notes, update this bit here where it works out what to add to Z to get Y, and this bit here where we are writing the message that the player will get about what's happened. I could have done something similar with testing skill and testing stamina and testing luck, but I sort of didn't think of it. I didn't think of it until I'd done a couple of them, and I'd rather do new material than sort of go back and rewrite old material. You know, because they're very similar. The only difference is the number of dice and the fact that you have to reduce luck by 1 if you're testing luck, whereas that's not true of skill and stamina or anything else. So that's how we do that. We've added quite a lot of different mechanics. I mean, there's 13 mechanics so far, which is more than I would have guessed, I think, if I just thought about a fighting fantasy, or at least that's what I would have guessed if I hadn't done, you know, a project like this before. You'll find that there's sort of more mechanics in there that you want to use than you'd think, even though the system might be very simple. And we're still not at the end because we haven't dealt with items yet, and that's a very important part of most fighting fantasies. And in fact, I am going to have a bit where you get or at least you have a chance of getting items. And so, of course, we need to keep track of those items. We need to be able to gain items, have the player gain items. We also need to have something that checks whether the player has a given item and branches based on that. But that is all for the future. For now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.